Hello and welcome back to the channel. So today we're having a look at the Casio EM-500. This was released in October of 2000, only 5 months after its predecessor, the E115, which we've looked at in a previous video. Not only that, but this is only 2 months before the release of the E125. And if that sounds like a busy year in the PDA market, in the same October edition of PC Magazine, not only is there a review of the EM-500, but there's a small feature on the Clear S300, Sony's first attempt at a PDA, as well as advertisements for the Palm 5, and a full feature on Casio's new wrist camera. Quick heads up to Michael, we should actually get on and do a video on that. This truly was a crazy time in the handheld market. So let's take a look. So I do have the box for the EM-500. As you can see, it was originally priced at £399.99 in the UK. The prices I found for American were all around $500, so that makes sense. It's very similar. As you can see, we've got the colour LCD displaying 65,000 colours. That's more than any other Pocket PC at the time. It's got stereo MP3 and Windows Media Playback, movie playback, that's via some of the additional software. It's advertising the fact that we now have Pocket Excel and Pocket Word to differentiate it from the palm-sized PCs that came before. It's got Pocket Internet Explorer and the Casio email client and setup assist. So the ROM includes a GSM software modem. However, you'll notice that the cable is not included. So of course you would need to buy a proprietary cable in order to take advantage of that. And on the front, it tells us it has the HAST screen, a hyper amorphous silicon TFT, and this is by far and away the best screen of the time period. On the bottom we've just got a nice picture and it tells us it's 16 meg. The side is very similar. The back has a full description of the active sync requirements, essentially requiring Windows NT 4 or better, or a Windows 95 to 98. Flipping over to the back, we've got a little bit of a description about its multimedia capabilities, a little bit about its new PIM functionalities, and again a mention of Microsoft Pocket Word and Excel. As you can see, there's a couple of tick boxes here, so you could get a cradle, it was optional. You could get stereo earphones with remote control, again optional. GSM cable, optional. Car adapter, optional. So included in this box would have been a couple of CDs, which include some extra software, a slip-in case. It's got a hard front and back cover to protect the device and it just slides in. And I'm quite fortunate because my example included the cradle. So the cradle, as I mentioned, is an optional extra from here on in with all the Casios. On the back, it's got a serial port, USB connector, and of course a jack in, so that can then just sit by your desk, permanently powered, and all you do is slide your Pocket PC into the cradle and it will automatically sync once connected over USB or serial. So here on the front we've got a direction keypad. Pressing it in doesn't do an enter. In the middle we've got the speaker, which is actually pretty loud. We've got 3 application buttons here, and up at the top we've got 2 indicator LEDs, one for power and one for alarms. If we flip it onto the side, you'll see we've got the power jack. It takes a standard 5-volt barrel, a power button. We've got a rocker, which you can press in as an action, and then the record/notes button, depending on how you set it up. Here we've got the infrared port. On the other side, we've just got this rubber grip, which does help keep it in your hand quite firmly. On the bottom, we've got the proprietary connector for the cradle or cable, and this little hole here is the recess for releasing the main battery cover. I'll show you that in a moment. Up at the top, we've got the memory card slot. This is an MMC slot. It is compatible with SD cards. We've also got a microphone slot and a 3.5mm jack. It is stereo. On the back, we've got this stylus silo. We've got a little button which essentially tells you whether or not there is a card in there, as you can't click it across if there is. We've got the reset button, we've got the backup battery holder, and we've got the main battery panel. The EM-500 was quite a design departure from the grey slabs that represented the E15, the E105, the E115, and the soon-to-come E125. Instead, it was clearly designed to attract a younger audience, featuring a dull grey aesthetic, but also a metallic red and blue. This also marks the point where Casio decided that cradles should be an optional extra. If you have the chance, I would always recommend getting a cradle, as it does make it a lot easier to keep it charged and synced with your computer. It wasn't just the styling that had changed though, the EM-500 was also a lot lighter, and there's more. So here's the E115. You'll see if we put them side by side, the EM-500 is just slightly shorter. It's almost identical in width, and from the side it's a very similar thickness. You'll see that the button placement is the same, but we've lost a button here, so we no longer have the Windows key. And while that's not detrimental, it's not a huge issue, it does inhibit one-handed use, as it's not possible to bring up the menu, scroll through and select an application one-handed. The EM-500 only has 16 megabytes of RAM compared to the 32 on the E115 and later 125, but it does have the faster 150 MHz CPU rather than the 131 that's in the E115. Finally, on the hardware front, Casio made the bold move to put an MMC slot instead of what was the industry standard compact flash Type 2 slot. Changing the memory standard to multimedia card, or MMC as it's known, was an interesting choice. It's worth noting that the MMC slot is compatible with SD cards, although SD slots are not compatible with MMC. I think Casio made the move away from the standard compact flash card in order to distinguish the new EM-500 not only from its brothers, the E1X series, but also from its competition. And while history shows that SD cards have gone on to become the dominant flash storage medium, albeit in a smaller form factor, they were very new at the time compared to the more established compact flash cards. Up to this point, just about every single handheld PC, palm-sized PC, and pocket PC had adapted the compact flash standard. The notable exception of this is the Philips Velo and Velo 500, which used the short-lived miniature cards. With not just memory cards available in that format, but also cameras, GPS, Wi-Fi, and other peripherals, so anyone already using Windows CE would likely already have memory cards and be loath to buy into a new memory format. It's worth noting that the MMC standard had only come out a year earlier, so in the year 2000, the maximum capacity you could get was 64 meg. Compare that to the 256 meg that you could get as a compact flash card, or if money's no object and you wanted to pay $499, you get a 1GB micro drive that would also fit in your compact flash Type 2 slot. Of course, as I mentioned, the MMC slot is also compatible with SD cards, but SD was only released in 2000 and its first offering was a mere 8 megabytes. So with that in mind, you could hardly use the EM-500 as a multimedia player in the year 2000, since additional memory was far too limited. So let's pop some batteries in and power it on. So in order to put the batteries in, you need to flick the switch from lock over to main, and then we need to release the bottom pin. So that's done by depressing this little notch here. And as you can see, it kind of pops off. And anyway, that's where the main battery goes. So we'll pop that in. So once that's in place, just pop the door back on, slide it to backup, and what you do is just flip it over and the backup panel just drops off. Now you can put your backup battery in. It's a CR2032, which is pretty standard. And there's a little catch, but obviously the writing goes the right way up. So you pop that in, drop it down, and then put it back to lock. And that seals it in place. So now neither of these battery panels will come away until that switch is flicked. So let's power it on. So that's just the standard Windows setup screen. The stylus itself is quite a nice size. There's a little bit of flex to it, and it's a two-part construction. So you do need to be careful not to damage the tip, as it can be pulled out, or you can fracture the plastic around it. I have seen on some styluses. The E115 and the EM-500 both share the same Windows CE 3 build, 9351. So in terms of normal software, everything is the same. So we've got exactly the same things: the AOL, calculator, connections, file explorer, infrared, Microsoft Money, Microsoft Reader, Casio mobile address book, Casio mobile calendar, Pocket Excel, and Pocket Word. The only small difference is that mobile address book has gone from version 1.2 to version 2, although when I looked at them I couldn't actually see any differences. So if we keep them side by side, they look pretty much identical to me. So we'll pop something in and just see if we can work out what the differences actually are. Super, let's save those, and we'll pop it on the home view, and we'll tap the name list. There we go. So this all looks identical. If I go to Tools, other than the version number, they're the same. I don't really see any difference. So essentially, it's the same. What I will say is that this is a much better address manager than the one built into Windows CE as standard. Let's take a quick look at the calendar, because there are differences in the mobile calendar. So they look very similar. There's some slight graphical differences when we change view. So you'll see there's no line here, and we haven't got the shading for Sunday. The other thing to note is that we've got time blocks here, and we don't on this side. So what this means is that if I want to enter a new appointment on this side, let's say for Tuesday, and we're going to work, so I can simply tap 9 o'clock. When I hit new, it will automatically put that in as the start time. I can then pop my end time in. We've got all the usual options for reminders, all-day events, repeats, and notes. So we'll just save that. There we go. And if we do the same on here, first of all, I can't tap and hold. That is one of the main differences, and I'll show you that in a second. So instead I have to go new. It gives me a random start time. Actually, it's whatever time it is today. And save that, yes. So again, we can see the length of time this is going to last. Tapping this button takes us to the original view, so this looks very similar now. So one of the big differences is that on here, if I want to move this to Wednesday, for example, I can't tap and hold. Instead, I have to tap it, select Tools, cut it, tap the new day, and paste. On version 2, I can actually just tap and hold, cut it, and paste it, which is quite a nice feature. Being able to view the hour blocks also means that at a glance you can see when you're busy during the day, so this is a nice addition. Moving through the other views, everything else is pretty much the same. On the Microsoft CD, under Extras, there is Avantgo, which is a long defunct web clipping application, Internet Explorer 5, for your PC should you need to upgrade it, Windows Media Player Manager for your PC so that you can interface it with your Pocket PC, transfer files and things like that. A copy of Microsoft Money, which will work on the Handheld PC and Pocket PC. In the Microsoft Reader folder, there's actually a folder of books to get you started. None of them look that exciting, but at least you've got something to read. Then we've got Outlook 2000 to sync your calendar with. This also includes Office 2000 viewers, but not Office 2000. We've got Pocket Streets, although all the maps are American, and as far as I'm aware, no UK maps or European maps were ever made. Correct me in the comments below if you know better. And finally, there's Transcriber. Transcriber is very useful. As you can see, it's quite good at handwriting recognition. Just be aware it takes up about a meg of memory and only about 200k of that can be loaded onto the memory card. The rest of it resides in RAM, and of course we only have 16 megabytes to start with. On the Casio CD, we've got Adobe Acrobat Reader, we've got B-Task, which is an enhanced task manager, Harmony that allows you to sync addresses and agenda files from your Palm with your Pocket PC. Then we have MEmail, which is an email client for the Pocket PC, MPVP, which is a movie clip and picture viewer, MS Manage, which allows you to convert your email settings from Outlook to your Pocket PC, so you can also synchronize that. MTDS is the software for the software modem that's built in, and of course you'll need the optional cable to use that. MV Convert is short for Mobile Video Converter. This is the software that'll allow you to convert videos to go onto your Pocket PC. Then we've got MV Player, which is the video player for the PC. And then MV PPC, which is the Pocket PC video player that you'll need to install to play those videos that you've just converted using MV Convert. There's a couple of patches, pre-install, and there's a demo for ZID Golf. Let's have a quick look at the video playback.
Takes up a mere 15 meg, so when you only have 64 to deal with in the first place, this is pretty impressive. This is the high resolution file, high resolution being relative, so it's 208 by 116 pixels, and I've set the audio quality to high. As you can hear, it is quite a bit better, and the image itself looks a lot better, although you'll see there's not actually that many frames. The same 12-minute file now takes up a little over 32 megabytes, but still, that's pretty reasonable. The conversion software that comes on the CD works absolutely fine under Windows 10 and 11. No doubt it works well under previous versions as well. Just be aware it only supports conversion of AVI and MPEG-1 files. After all, MP4s didn't exist in the year 2000, so you might need to convert any video files prior to putting them through this conversion software.
So when it comes to the screen, there's a couple of things worth knowing. The first is if you press the jog dial in and then press left and right, you can brighten and dim the screen. In addition, on these color screens, pressing up and down adjusts the contrast. Now in real world use, I never actually use the up and down, but being able to quickly adjust the brightness is very handy. So that's absolutely worth knowing. And the same thing applies to the older version on the E115. It is notable that the E115 screen, even on maximum, is a lot dimmer. So I'm not sure if that's because of the time it was made, it is from quite a few months earlier, or simply that this has had a lot more use, and so the CCFL in it is a lot dimmer, which is the more likely option. This screen was generally regarded as one of the best screens at the time, and it's easy to understand why. Not only are the colours vivid and the contrast is high, but it's got pretty good viewing angles. In fact, they're quite a lot better than some of the later devices. The Acer N300 springs to mind as being a bad example of viewing angles. While this screen isn't technically daylight viewable, as you can see from these photos, in anything but direct sunlight, it's not too bad. And certainly for indoor viewing, this screen is excellent, and it's very easy on the eyes. In terms of battery life, this is using the original battery, and I am getting around 3 hours on a charge. It is still possible to find replacement batteries. The battery type is, and I'm not going to use the stylus to pop the door because I don't want to break the tip, but it's a JK211LT. You can still find these. They do seem to be very expensive. Most of the ones I could see were in dollars, between 45 and 50, although I did find one for 11. I haven't been able to find a UK supplier, and unlike a lot of batteries for old palm tops, there doesn't seem to be any eBay sellers at the moment. So just be aware if you're going to get one of these, not only would I recommend finding one with the cradle, but I'd make sure that the battery is usable. All that being said, if you have an original battery that's dead, it should be possible to rebuild it using a pouch cell that are readily available. However, if this sits outside of your comfort zone and you're struggling to find a replacement battery, I would have a look at an alternative device where batteries are more readily available. The E115 and E125 are of course good recommendations, and you can still get batteries for them off eBay and Amazon. If you do manage to get your hands on a new battery, you should be looking at a battery life of 6 or 7 hours, which is not to be sneered at. If you did a rebuild, it's quite possible that you could build something with a little bit more oomph than the original 1100 milliamp hours, giving you a lot longer between charges. If any of you have actually done this, I'd love to know how difficult it was and how much capacity you ended up with. Pop a comment below. The EM-500 overall is a great PDA, and the blue and red versions are sure to turn heads even today. The display on this device, as I've already said, is excellent and very easy on the eyes, so it makes a great e-reader. Sadly, packing only 16 megabytes of RAM severely limits its functionality. By the time you've installed transcriber and a couple of other bits, you're already fighting for RAM to run programs, and I have had it crash on a few occasions simply because it runs out of memory. If you are going to get one of these, make sure that the battery works, and I would always go for a cradle if it's at all an option. There are ISOs of the CDs that came with it available on the Internet Archive, and I'll pop a link to those below. If you're interested in seeing some of the other software available, which I've not gone through today, you can find that in my full review of the E115, and I'll pop a link to that below. If you had one of these, perhaps you had the more snazzy red or blue version, pop a comment below. I'd love to know if you're still using it, and if not, why not? And did you find at the time that the MMC slot was a limiting factor? If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give a like and subscribe. A huge thanks to everyone who watches these videos, comments, subscribes, and of course, massive thanks to all the members who directly support the channel. As always, my name's Hugh. This is Handheld Computing. Thanks for watching.